What up YouTube? I am Sean Nerona and I film weddings. Today we're going to be talking about the Sony a6500. Real talk now, for everything that this little thing can do, it's only $1,400. That's for the body alone. It comes with a battery. Does it come with anything else? Doesn't freaking matter because this thing is amazing. The a6500 comes with an APS-C size sensor that has 24 megapixels, it shoots 4K, it does 120 frames per second slow motion at 1080. This thing's a beast. One of the most amazing things about this camera is in this tiny little body, they were able to fit internal body stabilization. So no more shaky handheld shots. This thing smooths it out. And also this thing is really freaking good in low light. I know that the Sony a7S Mark II is the one that everyone goes for, and that's the low light king, but this thing, I swear, is great. I've used the a7S too, and I almost prefer this camera. 1, it's cheaper. 2, it's almost as good. 3, it has more megapixels in the sensor, so it's actually sharper in 4K. It's got 24 megapixels, so it's also a great photography camera. I've taken some like amazing stills with this thing. Let me give it to you straight. Like the 5D Mark IV has 30 megapixels in its sensor. That cost $3,500. This cost $1,400 and it has 24 megapixels. And guess what? I have a speed booster that I got for $100, and all I do is screw it onto this sensor and it makes it a full frame camera. So guess what? 4K full frame uncropped for under $2,000. And think about, okay, 5D Mark IV, when you shoot in 4K, it crops the image. That is not okay. This thing does not. One of my other favorite things about this is the freaking dynamic range. And I'm gonna make another video about this because this is something that's very important to me. This thing has more dynamic range than any camera that I've ever owned. 14 stops. If I shoot an S-Log2, gives me a flat profile, full dynamic range. I'm able to retain detail in the highlights and the shadows. No complaints. I love the flexibility in post and being able to shoot an S-Log on this camera. Another great feature of this camera is that it has a flip out screen. So that way, if I am getting a high angle, I can still see my shot. And if I have a low angle, I don't have to be on the floor staring at the back of my camera. It also has this little dial on top so you can save presets. This thing has a lot of options for saving presets. So for example, on 1, I have my 4K 24 frames per second settings on that for like very cinematic, very detailed shots. And on 2, I'm ready to go in slow motion anytime, and it's at 120 frames per second. And that way, if I need to like switch really fast, I just click the dial and I'm there. So let's talk about what makes this Sony different. Most Sonys are smaller than the DSLRs that we're used to using that are pretty bulky. It's an understatement to say that this thing is small. I thought I was gonna break it when I first opened the box. And look, it is the size of my phone. Actually, it's smaller than my phone, and it's very light. At first, I thought maybe this is too small, and I was a little nervous about it, but I love taking this thing around. It is so fun to use. Because of its size, I shoot with it more than almost anything. With a lot of other cameras, it was really hard for me to get around when I was doing bride prep and hanging out with the bridesmaids, and like lugging a huge tripod and a camera around and trying to get in those tight shots, getting those details of faces and hands. When I got the 6500, it's so small that I didn't need to worry. I could just go in there, get in, get out, get my shots. I could be there right in front of their faces and not feel like I was invading their space. I've used GoPros, I've used Canons, I've used Panasonics, I've used Blackmagics, and I've got to tell you, this Sony footage is some of the best footage that I've ever had. I know I said that about the Blackmagic, but that's because I hold Blackmagic footage on a very high pedestal, okay? This thing comes very, very close. It beats the Canons, it beats the Panasonics. Somehow, Sony has been able to channel this 4K and this flat profile and squeeze it into these tiny little files that fit on your SD card completely fine. And when you open them and look at the footage, there's so much information there. There's so much room to play in post, and the image does not fall apart when you start to grade. So I was a little spoiled when I had the GH4 because battery life was not even a problem. I usually wasn't even going through 2 batteries for an entire wedding day. That's nuts. But I'm also in the habit of turning off the camera between shots. I'm still in that habit. This Sony a6500 has very poor battery life. The battery will last you about an hour at most, and that's with it continuously on and you're continuously shooting. So if you get this camera, make sure to buy a crap ton of batteries. I usually have at least 5 charged batteries with me at all times. However, with that good habit of turning the camera off between shots, I usually only go through like 3 batteries for the wedding day, sometimes 4. So that can really save you, but at the same time, make sure you have it on when crazy stuff's happening. You don't want to miss like a speech or a first look or anything, so make sure you know when to have the camera on, and when you're not using it, turn it off. As inexpensive as the Sony is, you want to make sure that you're budgeting for the accessories, such as a speed booster or mount adapter if you're adapting your Canon glass. You're also adding extra batteries, you're adding a microphone, sometimes you're adding a battery grip. Another thing I don't like about this thing, where do you want to put your SD card, right? You want to put it there, because that's where every other camera has an SD card port. But guess what? There's nothing there. You have to go to where the battery goes in and put your SD card in here, and it's actually kind of tough and stupid, and I hate it. I hate it. Another thing to keep in mind about the SD card, make sure that you are buying an SDXC Pro card. Even if it's a SanDisk Extreme Pro, and even if it has high bitrate, if it's not an SDXC card, you won't be able to shoot 4K, and you won't be able to do 120 frames per second at 100 megabits. You can do it at 50 megabits, but not 100. I know that sounds weird and technical, but that's important and you'll understand. The 6500, like most Sonys, has a record limit of 30 minutes, which means at 30 minutes, it stops recording. And you have to press record. It doesn't split it up into other clips or anything. Like if you're in a ceremony and you get to 30 minutes and it's over, then the camera stops recording and you have to press the button again, which means you missed like a second of the ceremony. So make sure that you have another angle and that's recording continuously, because you don't want to miss any second of the ceremony. So the Sony has an E-mount, which means make sure that you buy Sony lenses that are E-mount, because there's also A-mount, so don't get those confused and buy like a bunch of Sony A-mount lenses and get home and be like, oh shit. Or you can get a Canon EF adapter from E-mount to EF mount. That way if you're coming from like a 5D or something, you can adapt your Canon lenses to the Sony mount. So those are my thoughts on the Sony a6500. If you like this video, please smash that subscribe button, like and share this video. I'd love to hear from you guys, so leave a comment. I'm going to make sure to link raw footage up here and in the description below, and of course links to the camera and its accessories. So thank you guys for tuning in, and remember, it's not the camera, it's you that makes the videos great. I'll see you guys next time.